Hello, and welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm your host, Liz Lang. Each week on this podcast, we will break down various aspects of mental health. We are so excited you're here and hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hey guys, Liz Lang here with Jeremiah and Selina Woodruff from Core Connection. And this week we are going to get into talking less, connecting more. And before we do that, Jeremiah has this week's parenting moment.
Okay, so this last week we had the opportunity to go to a dog show. We're not huge dog people, but we have a child that is. We have a child that really loves animals. And Selina's aunt does a lot of dog shows and is a trainer and very, very good at what she does, quite frankly. And that required a several hour trip out of state. And we kind of discussed who all would be going. We have 7 children, for those of you who don't know, who haven't paid much attention to our podcast, but Selina and I have 7 children, and 3 of them, almost 4 of them are adults now. And so the 3 youngest typically go with us when we go somewhere. We were kind of debating back and forth and who all's going to go. And we ended up asking one of our children, the one that likes the dogs, if they wanted everybody to go or if they wanted to go by themselves. And they wanted to go all by themselves. So we're like, oh, okay. Well, that just makes it more difficult for us because we have the 2 younger ones now that are they've got places they need to be or babysitters or whatever. You know, for us, it was just kind of a good reminder because when you have a large family, it's important that children get one-on-one time with mom and dad. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe we lost track of that a little bit recently because we get caught up in just the logistics of things, right? It's simpler to just take everybody and have everybody in the same place. We don't have to worry about babysitters or anything like that. But for us, at least for me, Selina might have a different view, but for me, it was a really good reminder that our kids need one-on-one time. And she needed that time with mom and dad. It was a great experience. We had a lot of fun together. It was fun to watch her and for this little trip to be all about her and her experiences and what she wants. And it was good for us, right?
Yeah. So probably for me, it's more of like efficiency. Like I'm all about like a 2-for-1, right? If I can do this and accomplish this and take care of this. So taking the kids is like, oh, I can take care of this, or we can run this errand, or I can have them come so they can, do this or that or whatever. And so for me, the struggle is more about that of like, wait, just one person, is that efficient? Like, what are we going to get done? What are we accomplishing? Probably not good, but that's sometimes how you have to run a household to take care of everything with lots of people. But yeah, I think for me, when I told her, I said, hey, do you want to invite your friend? She has a friend that loves dogs too. So I was like, well, you could bring so-and-so. And she was like, nope. And that's when I was like, oh, this is serious. Like she really just wants mom, dad, her, and we're just going to do it. Doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense or if we're taking too big of a car for 3 people, that's okay. We're going to go. We're going to spend that time with her. And we did. We had a really good time and enjoyed watching her learn and grow and having that opportunity and being excited for her.
I love that she wants to spend time with you guys.
Heck, that's what I said. We had a moment that I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. We should be like jumping on this for every chance we can, right? Yes. We're going to soak that up. So
I don't think my 13-year-old would have turned down a chance to bring a friend.
I was honestly very surprised.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that reminder. So I think we're kind of experiencing a little bit of that too she's not technically the middle anymore because she's our second oldest, but our family's had a lot of medical problems lately. And I've noticed that she's trying to have medical problems because it almost seems like you need to have medical problems in our family to get attention.
Yeah.
So you're right. I mean, kids do need that one-on-one attention. So but it can be tough when you have a lot of kids and just a lot of responsibility. So parenting isn't easy, just worth it most of the time.
So true. And what a great opportunity for you and your husband to recognize like, ooh, she needs some attention. Let's make sure we're giving her the kind of attention that will build connection and relationship and improve her own mental well-being.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So How to know when silence is more powerful than words. This is a good one because I feel like as parents, we often have a lot of words because, well, we have so much life experience and we know how to make life just go so easy for our kids. If they would just do the things that we tell them to do, their life would be so fantastic. If only.
Well, and likely we're right actually about that because
Yeah.
we have the wisdom, right? We
Yeah.
have the experiences
Right.
and we know, hey, this choice will result in this negative result, or, if you make this choice, you're going to be happier in the future or whatever. And so, yeah, likely we're right. But the problem
They
is
don't know
it
that.
doesn't build connection and they don't trust that yet, right? So
Mhm.
we didn't get to where we are because we did everything our parents said and because they imparted all of their wonderful wisdom and knowledge to us. We got to where we are because our parents guided us, they directed us, and sometimes they did impart too much knowledge. And a lot of times we've gotten to where we are because we learned the hard way when we didn't listen to them. And so learning kind of when to be a little bit more quiet and when to speak it's a fine art for parents. I think it's a challenge. It's not easy, but it's something that's worthwhile in building connection with your kids.
Yeah. And, I think what can also go really well with talking less is adding in that validation piece, right? So, like validating and not going into lecture mode or even just, trying to fix it or offering solutions. Just, I understand that's really hard. Leave it at that. And then just being there and being present can be really powerful.
Yeah, and it's easy. Like I'm more guilty. Like if any of my kids are listening to this, they know like I'm super guilty of this and going into lecture and fixing the problem and this is what you should be doing. And man, I've created some significant difficulties for a few of my children because of that. And so it is tough, but the validation piece is important. Oh, man, that must be difficult. What are you thinking? What do you think you're going to do here?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes just asking those curiosity questions helps you to slow down a little bit and listen to them instead of try and fix it for them. And I think a big piece of this for me is understanding that we already know the answer and we want our kids to have the answer. So we want to give it to them, but we don't often give them time to even think about it, to think about what the answer might be for whatever they're dealing with, right? We just go right into fix it, repair, lecture, criticize, whatever, instead of saying, hey, what do you think you might do? Well, I don't know. Yeah, that's a tough one. Do you want to spend a little time thinking about that? And let's chat in 20 minutes. Things like that can be super powerful. And I know it's tough when the emotions are high and if it's a stressful conversation or something like that, but slowing down allows us to build connection with our children.
Another aspect to understand is like the fear or anxiety that we're experiencing, and then we just start over explaining and think we need to say all the right things and capture that moment to really help them. But understanding that what we're experiencing and our feelings and the anxieties that we're feeling about the situation and trying to control that, I guess helps you to understand, again, the slowing down. Like it's okay that I'm feeling anxious, it's okay that I'm feeling upset, but that's not the time to start talking and explain. That's the time for me to just sit and listen and feel that anxiety and get to a point that you would be able to just listen and help guide them instead of just lecturing.
Yeah, if we turn this around a little bit and we put ourselves as adults in the shoes with somebody with a power differential, right? Like a boss or something like that. And they're continually lecturing us without even listening to what we have to say. What does our opinion of that person develop into, right? We don't trust them. We feel like they don't trust us. We feel like we're being criticized, that they're controlling us. Guess what? Our kids feel exactly the same way. We don't want to be controlled that way. We don't want people to be critical of everything that we do. We want people to trust us, and so do our kids. And when we just start running our mouths, well, you need to do this, and how come not this, and why haven't you done that, and you should be doing this, and you need to say that. Oh, so you don't trust that I know how to manage my friendships, or you don't trust that I can make good decisions, or you think that I'm making poor decisions. You're trying to control everything I'm doing. Well, that's going to be the opposite of connection. We're going to have serious division. So slow down, listen, and become curious. And we're going to do a whole lot better.
A pitfall that I often find myself falling into is because I want to connect, because I want to understand, I unintentionally almost make it about me. It's like, oh yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I feel that way sometimes too. And then I start getting into like, oh, I understand I so understand what you're going through, rather than just like, letting it be more about them. Right. And so, and not that you shouldn't find ways to connect, and not that there's certainly a time and a place to say, oh, I've been through this, or yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, and sharing your experiences. There's a time and a place for that, but it doesn't need to be every time, right? It doesn't need to be all the time. Sometimes I think just sitting there and just being there in the silence. And I think you can even say that to your teen, just be like, I can see you're struggling. I can see you're in pain. Can I just sit here with you? And I think also parents should be prepared for sometimes them to just shut you out and say, no, I just want to be alone. So be prepared for that. I don't want you to think you're all going to just, I don't know, parents are going to go out and have this amazing experience where I just sat and connected with my kid. Hopefully you will. But there's also going to be times where they're like, I don't want to be around anybody. I just want to be by myself. And that's actually important too. That can be a very powerful way to connect, even if it doesn't feel like it, because you're respecting their need for space. You're respecting their need to be a human being and to process emotions. And it's good for everybody to spend time alone processing emotions. And so leaving them be actually can be a good way to build connection.
Don't you want to be alone sometimes when you're dealing with something difficult?
Exactly.
Like it's a super normal desire, right? And of course, we're watching here, and we're being cautious that they don't always want to be alone. But sometimes when something big comes up, you know what? I want to go sit on my bed and just veg out for a little bit, and then come back to it. And it's a simple conversation with our kids, such as, "Man, I can see this is tough. Do you just want a minute?" And I'm here for you when you're ready, or if you're ready to talk. And I think it is hard, Liz. I appreciate that you shared that you struggle with like trying so hard to connect that you are making it about you. And I think that's pretty common for a lot of us. It's just, we want them to see so bad that we understand, but that's actually not the important piece of the connection, especially for them. They don't need us to understand. They don't, it's just not necessary for them. There might be times where it's appropriate, and sometimes it can be helpful to ask permission to share. We might say something such as, I remember going through something similar. Would you like to hear something that I had to deal with when I was a kid? And now it's not about you, but they're seeing how you processed it, how you handled it. And we're not going to tell them, so because I did this, I think you should do this and this and this. But they might say, well, what was the result, or whatever? And then we can share that. But you're right. Sometimes they might just be like, leave me alone. Don't want to be around you. Don't want to hear it from you. No, I don't want to hear your stories of your life and how you understand everything I'm going through, because they don't believe that you do, no matter how much you tell them. That's just the reality.
Oh, those teenage songs like I'm Just a Kid, Life is a Nightmare, or whatever it is. There's so many of those songs where it's like, nobody understands me. That is so how teenagers feel. And they really do feel that. And I think oftentimes they don't want to be convinced that it's not true. You would think that they would. You would think that they're in pain and they want to be comforted by mom and dad. No, they don't. Sometimes they just want to wallow. And as adults, sometimes I think we just want to wallow too.
No, I appreciate you bringing that point up, Liz, about, that's a fine line of wanting to tell them what you experienced. I've been thinking about that in other areas of my life lately, that like, why is it always like you want to share, oh, like I've experienced that, or I've experienced this, but the way I've been okay with not beating myself up about it is my experience is the only experience I know. And so that's what I have to share.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe don't beat yourself up too much about it. That's just what you have to share, the experience you have to share.
And it's just so normal and so natural as parents to want to have the right words to say. I feel like sometimes as parents, we feel like if we can just find the perfect words, we can fix everything. And I think we really feel that way sometimes, but that's just not the way it works. Unfortunately, it would be really nice if we could just say the perfect words and, and make it better, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes no matter what we say, teens, they're just not going to listen, and sometimes they just need a minute to just be an angsty emo teen that wants to wallow in how hard their life is. And it's okay to do that for a minute. It's okay to process these emotions and to let them have, their time, and to let them crawl into their cave, and they'll come out when they're ready. And if they don't, then you can be worried. If it's too long in the cave, then you can be worried, but let them have their time.
I always come back to this book title that reminds me. It's called How to Hug a Porcupine. Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like. You want to hug them, and you want to help them out, but they're a porcupine, right?
Selina and I have to remind ourselves, or one another, of that often, I should say.
So here's something that I have been trying to decipher in my mind. Maybe you guys can help me. Is I feel like when I try to not react, I have no reaction. I'm like, is that being cold or unresponsive or like not compassionate? So there's something to be said or learned there too, right?
There is.
Because I'm like telling myself like, don't react. But then I'm like, am I being too like, they need to hear something?
Well, and it's really important. I think that takes us to a new piece of this particular conversation, because when we say talking less and connecting more and knowing when to be silent, we're not talking about like the silent treatment. We're not talking about just be like, it's their problem, they deal with it. We're talking about not lecturing and not criticizing and not fixing the problem. So when we're feeling like we need to be quiet here, a simple word of validation can be super helpful. That must be really hard. Or it could be, I'm not really sure how to respond right now. Can I have a few minutes? Or I can see that this is really upsetting. Should we revisit this later this evening or tomorrow? So sometimes just those brief phrases helps them understand that, no, I'm not ignoring you. This is important because you're having a hard time. It's important to me. But I'm not going to lecture you, and I'm not going to tell you everything that you should do, and I'm not going to be critical of your decisions and your choices, but I'm recognizing that you're going through something difficult.
Okay, I like that. I guess just like even communicating a little bit of what you're experiencing, because I often wonder if my kids are like, is she
human?
Well, like, does she have any kind of reaction to this? Because I am a pretty wild, passionate, outspoken person, and so when I do get quiet, they're probably like, "Oh shoot,
oh shoot, mom's not saying anything."
And I can only imagine they're, oh, she's judging, she's saying this. So I guess maybe, that's a good skill, is maybe just communicating to them like, "Hey, I'm listening to you. This must be hard." I do, and I can recognize in myself those different situations of there's times that I'm like, in my mind, I'm proud of myself because I'm not like reacting, but inside I'm like, oh my gosh, I do not have time for this. This is just silly.
Yep.
And so I'm trying to not like say all those things that I'm thinking, or not trying to lecture. There is times that I am thinking that and feeling that way, right? But there is other times that I'm like, this is not your problem to solve. This is just for you to listen to them.
Selina, you said something that made me think about something that I hadn't really considered discussing today per se, but sharing with them what you're experiencing. That's something that we don't do well as human beings, right? Like, I know me especially, if I'm going through something difficult, I'm probably going to be quiet. I'm not going to say much. And that can be read by my family as a whole lot of different things, right? Like, dad's mad about something. Dad doesn't feel well. Dad, does he know about this thing that I messed up on? And so it leaves everybody wondering, what is happening here? And so I don't think it's a bad thing to communicate with our children what we're experiencing when they're going through something hard. Like, you know what? I'm really worried. Like, you're telling me something that's creating worry for me, and I'm not sure how I should respond because I love you and you're important to me. I need a few minutes to think through this. That's actually teaching emotional regulation to our children through modeling. And it's a powerful tool because it helps them see this opportunity that we have to go, it's okay to take a step back and think about things before we start speaking about them, so that we speak in a way that we don't regret later. And so, again, just that piece of learning to share with others that we're close to what we're experiencing also adds to the connection piece, right? Oh man, this is hard for mom, or this is hard for dad. And what's interesting about that is one of the worries that we have is that we don't want to communicate to our kids that, oh, mom and dad can't handle big things, so I can't tell them when things are really bad.
Yep.
And so I think that fear feeds into us not sharing what we're experiencing. But in reality, sharing what we're experiencing actually builds the trust in them, going, oh, you know what? They may not know how to handle it, but they know how to process emotions. And they're not going to think about it in that kind of language, right? But they know how to deal with things in their own life. Whereas if we completely shut down or we just run into lecturing, that's actually when we're communicating to our children that, ooh, mom and dad can't handle big things. Don't go to them with big things.
And sometimes it's also absolutely okay to say, this is hard for me and I don't know how to handle this right now. I'm still processing. And that can be a scary thing as parents, because sometimes we want our kids to think we have all the answers and we can solve anything and they can always come to us because we're always going to know what to do. But don't give them that false sense of security. And so it is 100% appropriate to say, look, I need time to process this. I don't know what the right response is here, but I want to be here for you and I am here for you. And, we can just sit and ponder this together if you want, right?
And we can figure this out together. We can find a solution together, whatever it looks like. And I would argue that creating within children this idea that mom and dad know it all and have all the answers is very unhealthy.
Exactly.
We're going to create all kinds of other monsters. We won't get into that today, but we don't need to have all the answers. That's just not necessary.
Yeah. And, as parents, it's hard when our kids lose that illusion. I mean, because up to a certain age, we actually do have all the answers. Like for our little itty bitty kids, we really do have all the answers because their needs are relatively simple. Oh, they're hungry. They need a snack. They're tired. They need a nap. Right. But eventually they're going to grow up and then their problems are going to get more complex and we're not always going to be able to handle it. And so it's hard for kids to lose that illusion that mom and dad have the answers to everything, but it's important for them to come to that realization because it's okay for all the humans to know we don't always have the answer to everything.
Yeah. And then communicating that piece, like, we can find the answer. We can figure this out together. We can do this. That can demonstrate like a powerful connection for our kids.
Yeah. And so also going back to what you said, Selina, about worrying about not having a reaction. One thing that I thought about is it probably depends on the situation, because I know like there are times where your teen could be trying to get a rise out of you. And if you're just not reacting at all, that's actually the perfect reaction. So if your teen is just mad and yelling and they're just, demanding things of you, I think it's appropriate to just sit there and listen and not say anything and have no reaction. That was what instantly came to mind as well. If your teen is pitching a child-sized fit, then, well, neutrality is probably a pretty safe bet because it's going to help keep you from getting heated. And then it's not going to give them what they want, which is for you to, stoop down to where they are at emotionally. They flip their lid, but your lack of reaction is going to help you not flip yours.
Yeah, and calm the situation, right? I just know I personally, what I'm experiencing, I like it better than when I'm trying to control and lecture. And I don't know, has anybody else experienced where you're there's a situation and then your brain's like going through all the like, oh no, how am I supposed to react? What am I saying? What is this saying? Oh shoot, I should look on my phone. What's the proper thing? With all this knowledge you have and you're trying to make it right and trying to bring it back to to doing it right. So
Another thing that came to mind too is body language. Sometimes you're probably saying way more than you think you are when you're calm, when you're acting calm. If you're making eye contact, then that says I am actively listening to you. That can say way more than any words can. I think it's like 80%. And this is just one of those things that I've heard, like 80% of communication is nonverbal. I could be wrong on that. But there is, like, the point is like we communicate nonverbally more than we do verbally.
Well, I don't know what the percentage is, but you're absolutely right. There's a lot of nonverbal communication that happens there. And it kind of brought up a thought for me that I thought I might share here. As parents, we live in this world of cell phones, right? We've always got our stupid phone in our hands. When it's time to have a conversation with your child, that phone should be nowhere near your hands. It shouldn't be touched. Put it down, whatever. I don't care what you're doing. Put it down. Not just so I can see it, but put it in your pocket, put it away, set it aside, give them your attention. They deserve that. And that'll help with connection because, scrolling on your phone. I watched a reel the other day about this, and it was really interesting because the guy was kind of conducting an experiment without letting the other guy know that's what he was doing. And he said, he kind of coached the guy. He said, ask me these questions. And he held the phone up and he's like, well, what did it make you feel like? Well, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like I'm done explaining myself to you or explaining my situation to you. And then he did the same kind of thing, like by putting it on the table, but with the screen up. And it was a little bit better, but he kept looking down at the screen, right? So he still felt disconnected from the individual. And then he flipped it over so that the screen side was down, but he still had that phone right there, that safety net right there. I could just grab it. But when he took it away and it wasn't visible anymore, and he was making eye contact, like you said, Liz, all of a sudden he's like, I feel like you care. I feel like you want to know. I feel like you are hearing what I'm saying. And that I'm not competing for something else or someone else's attention. So that can be a really powerful tool if we're struggling to connect. What does our body language say? What are the things that we're saying to our child when we are having these conversations, especially when they're hard conversations?
And I would also take that a little bit further and say it can go beyond cell phones, because as human beings, we've lost the ability to just sit and be. We're always doing something. And I know as a mom, it's so easy for me to get caught up in that. I am always doing something, laundry, cooking, cleaning, right? You're always doing something. And there's a lot of value in when your kid comes to you and this is something important, setting that task aside. Now, there are going to be instances like if you're in the middle of dinner and your kid comes to you and they clearly want to have this big, important conversation, it's totally appropriate to say, I can see how important this is and I want to give this my full attention. Can we circle back to this after dinner so that I can give you my full attention? 100% appropriate. But if you're just doing laundry, if you're doing something and there's no time constraint, put your task aside, whatever it is, and just be there in the moment with your child.
And I agree with that for serious conversations. I think there's also value in the kids come home and they're sitting around the kitchen island and eating a snack and telling mom about their day as she's preparing dinner. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's very healthy and appropriate. We're talking about having the serious conversations when they come to you and say, hey, I need help, essentially. Ooh, this is serious. Let's take away from this. And I'm not suggesting that we don't put our phones down all the time when we talk to our children. I'm just saying sometimes there's other things that we can be doing and have conversations about things. If you do yard work together, that's a wonderful time to have conversations with kids. And these are just basic conversations. Well, what do you want to do when you grow up? Or what do you think about this? Or what was this like for you? Those are appropriate times to have those conversations. And as a parent, you just got to start to learn, where and when to have conversations and when to put the distractions away and give undivided attention, especially if it's serious, so that we build that connection and that strength of that connection with our child.
Yeah. My oldest loves to just, I don't want to say like follow me around, but she kind of is. Like I'm doing something, like I'm moving back and forth around the house and she's just kind of going along with me and we're just chatting. And that does feel nice. And that is a great way to build connection. And, sometimes I have to be like, okay, I got to use the bathroom. You can't come in the bathroom.
Yep.
Right. But it just sends that message of, it doesn't matter what's going on in my life, what I'm doing. I always want you there with me. You're always important to me, and you are more important than this task. Even if you're still doing the task, it still sends that subtle message of, and maybe even not so subtle, but it still sends that message of, I value you more than whatever it is that I'm doing. Okay, so in closing, I want to hit on when silence is not the right choice, because there are times as parents where you do need to speak up. So, like, if there is a serious issue, there are times like maybe it's grades or it's this major decision. Sometimes you can't just be silent. Sometimes you do have to step in and, set the boundary, right?
Yeah, and to be clear here, we're talking about silence from the parents, not the child.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you're right. There are times we need to speak up. We don't ignore serious issues because, we're trying to be silent to build connection. That's garbage. We're not doing that. We don't want to avoid like boundaries that are necessary and important. And one of the things that's really, really important here is we don't withdraw affection in our silence. Sometimes kids start to feel like the love of their parents is based on the decisions they're making or the people they're becoming. And we never, ever want to give that indication to our children. That love should be, endless and boundless, regardless of what they do, choose, believe, think, say, feel, whatever. The love should be unconditional as a parent. We love them no matter what. And that should be conveyed in whatever way possible. We never want them to feel like, I love you less because you're not making grades that your older sibling is making. Like we just don't want to go down that road.
Yeah, there is healthy silence is paired with availability and warmth. So, we don't ever want to, withhold affection from our kids, even if we're frustrated with them, even if things aren't going well. It's kind of like, just go hug the porcupine. Even if you are frustrated, even if they aren't making a good choice, sometimes it's okay to just give them a hug. I know you don't like this.
Especially if you're frustrated.
Yeah.
That's an especially important time. And to show that affection, and even if you've got to say something like, this is really important and we're going to come back to it in a minute, but in the meantime, let me have a hug. Can I give you a hug? And let's talk about this, after dinner, or let's talk about this more when you've had a moment to think about how, you would like to move forward, when give them some space to problem solve and to come up with solutions.
Yep. There's times where I have completely dissolved a meltdown with just, do you need a hug? Do you just need a hug? So, and I do think there's also value in asking that question, because sometimes kids are so heated and they're like, I don't want anybody to touch me. And it is important to respect that physical boundary as well. But sometimes, especially if you're a family like mine, where physical affection it's a huge part of our family. Like, we're just very physically affectionate people. And if your family is not so much that way, that's totally fine. But, always respecting those physical boundaries. But I mean, I think offering a hug is one of those things that you can't do too often with your kids.
Well, you feel better when you do too.
Yeah. Oxytocin, the love drug, the hug drug.
Love it.
Yep.
Yes. Oxytocin is a wonderful, beautiful thing. Okay, so next week we are going to continue on with this topic, and we will get into listening skills that deepen connection, and we will see you all then. Have a question? How about a topic you'd like us to cover? Send us an email at mentalhealthpod21@gmail.com.